Jared, today we're going to talk a little bit differently around what not to do. On this podcast, we always talk about what to do. We're going to go through some absolute horror stories with some clients and how we fix that for them. But don't make these mistakes.
Client horror story for me, 2021, came to me with one big loan for every single investment property that he had. So he then turned around, was looking to sell a property. The bank that he was with wanted him to pay down an enormous amount of debt here. They had undervalued some key properties. He had got some terrible advice over that period of time. So it took us about a year, but we had then uncrossed every single one of those properties. The benefit that he had in having it under the one loan is that every time he wanted to cash out a little bit of equity, he could go to the bank, they'd order a valuation on every single property, and he could get up to 80%. Nice and easy at that point. Now, something that the bank don't talk to you about when it comes to properties here is it's easy on the way in, and that's great because clients have a great customer experience. But what happens on the way out? So on the way out, they don't understand that at that point in time, every single one of those properties that are held as security has to go through a test, potentially a valuation, to work out how much they're worth at that point in time. Now, you might be going through market movements, through different cycles in regional areas. All of a sudden, we had a couple of these properties that he had seen come way under value. And that's another problem that we've got when we're dealing with valuers, as opposed to the actual sale price, is valuers in certain locations, going through certain events, can come back with some very, very conservative figures. So how did we fix this problem for this client? We got every single property valued through a couple of different lenders. That gave us a outlook that we could see where we were seeing the best possible valuations come in for these properties. In saying that, there's still a couple that were coming in well under what we saw market value and comparable sales. There's not a lot of arguing that happens with valuers when it comes to existing values and when it's not under contract. So sometimes you just got to grin and bear it. And we refinanced all 10 of these properties over a period of probably 6 months. Like I said, the downside is that when he then wants to have a look at refinancing, cashing out a little bit of equity, there's maintenance done on all of these different loans. But he now understands the importance of it on the flip side, and knowing that if you're selling a property that is being sold for $510,000 and you've got an easily identifiable loan on it that's $320,000, that you're only going to have to pay that $320,000 off. One bank or one lender is not going to say, give us all of that $500,000 because these other properties have come in under value. So for an investor that's looking to grow, whether it's their second property or their 10th property or their 100th property, making sure they've got individual loans and not crossing over the securities is paramount there. Also working out that if you need a deposit for another property or you want 100% tax deductible debt, which a lot of people will get advice from their accountant, go out and borrow 100%. It doesn't need to be 100% on that one loan. It can be 80% on that loan that's being bought here, and it can be 20% that we're cashing out potentially across a couple of other investments. As long as we know what the purpose is, we see that that's fit for purpose with their accountant as well. We work really collaboratively. We're going to see some pretty good results when it comes to that.
Key message out of here is don't cross collateralize your property, because if you do sell one, it may mean that you've got to pay back an enormous amount of that loan and see no benefit in selling it, i.e. there's no cash in your pocket.
What's your horror story, Kerrod?
Jared, a horror story of a client of mine that I've had over these last 12 months is a business owner that was running a absolutely brilliant business, a labour hire business from 2016 to 2020, was absolutely killing it, making hand over fist in money. But with COVID happened, she lost 80% of her income because she had that with one client, which was in WA, and then the borders shut. And if you're providing labour hire to one portion of Australia and they shut the borders, away went her income. Now, what had happened to her is because the business was making such good income, she was drawing that out personally and not paying tax along the way. Now, if you get the wrong advice here, what had happened to her is she'd taken that money out of the business and she's got a whopping big tax bill to pay. Yes, she's got family trust structures set up at the moment, but it was never utilised property. And at the moment, she's got over $600,000 in tax bills that she has to pay back through herself personally and also through other entities. Now, that really stops her from doing anything that she wants to do. She can't go and buy a family home. She can't go and do any investments, and she's getting paid $150,000 a year as now an employee of a business to be a managing director. But every single dollar goes back to paying her personal tax bill of over $250,000. So her income comes in each fortnight. We talk about automating. It's automated straight to the ATO. Horrendous. She's also got debts inside the company to the ATO to the tune where all up at $600,000. So there's things called Div 7A loans. If an accountant is talking through a Div 7A loan, please headbutt them. But a Div 7A loan can be used really, really well in the right circumstances. But I would say for 80 to 90%, don't touch them, because it's a loan from the business to you that you have to pay back. And it comes at the market rate, whatever the ATO determines. It's at 8% today. So she's now got to pay back that money back to herself, essentially, but she's got to pay it back at 8%. And now because that entity that she has is earning 8% interest, well, lo and behold, the entity that she's had is now earning an income. When an entity earns income and there's no expenses, now she's got to pay tax on that income. So not only has she got to pay an additional 8%, she's now got a tax bill in that entity to pay back. And she's just paying back the money to herself. So she owes herself $600,000. She owes the ATO $600,000. She can't go and personally do anything because she's got no income. There's no bank that'll touch her because she owes the ATO so much money. It has really hurt everything that she does for her and her family, to the point where she had to go and sell her beautiful big family home. Horrendous. And she can't go and purchase that back. Fast forward to now, she's diversified her income streams. Notice that you can't have just one client paying 80% of your wage because you are solely reliant on them. Circumstances that were not hers nearly killed her business. But she's understood, we've gone through the business cycle, she's diversified those income streams, there's more coming in from other places, and now to the point where she's gone and got a couple of different contracts, and it is totally put her business back on the map. She's now going to be profitable $1 million, $1.5 million this year is what we're forecasting. She's going to be able to get rid of those ATO debts. But she's killing it in business, but has to consolidate all of the hard lessons that she was making 7-8 years ago, even longer than that, because she got the wrong advice. And that was through no fault of her own. But geez, that's a hard lesson to learn when you're on the hook to the ATO for $600,000 and they're not really forgiving. A client horror story around businesses, more importantly, income in businesses where you're getting your income from. But also, when you're taking that money out of the business, you need to be really smart with what you're doing with it and how much you're taking out, because the government says, well done, you've got a great crack in business, but I want a portion of that. So just be careful how you're getting your income in a business when you are going, because if the tide goes out, sometimes we see who's been swimming nude.
COVID was one of the great levelers, wasn't it? With a lot of businesses, and it did show a lot of cracks that businesses had that, yeah, they've been able to, you know, like this lady, turn around, restructure it, diversify. A lot of people with all their eggs in one basket didn't realize how much that it could be affected because we hadn't seen that before.
I mean, nobody tells you that when you start a business, you're the tax man. And what I mean by that is if you pay employees or you pay yourself, you've got to withhold their tax to the end of the month or to the end of the quarter and pay it as a BAS. Any income that you make, you've got a lovely thing called GST that you've got to hold 10% of all of your income. So you might have a large quarterly BAS bill. If you've spent all your money, the government says, excuse me, I want our debt collection now. And if you don't have that put away as a business owner, you can get into trouble. And I've seen that so many times in businesses. The biggest trouble that they get in is they owe the ATO money because they are the debt collector. Nobody tells them when they sign the first director's agreement when they're starting and establishing a company that you are the government's bucket.
Thank you for tuning in to Your Wealth Playbook. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcast, hit follow and drop a 5-star rating and share this episode with a friend.
Help us reach more people and enhance the financial knowledge of our families, friends, and communities. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Just a reminder, the information in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal objectives, financial situation, or needs. Before making any financial or investment decisions, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for your circumstances and seek professional advice. Past performance is not an indicator of future performance.
If you'd like to discuss any of the points mentioned today in more detail, reach out to us directly and we would love to help and have a chat.